By now the arms merchant is looking really bad, and the jig is pretty much up. The storm has some kind of effect on Cylon technology over time, which is causing him to degrade. So, what's your big plan to save the human race? I'm going to have my people scan the storm around us to determine exactly what it is about this storm that disrupts Cylon technology. Then we'll reconfigure our dishes to emit the exact same properties to then shine at the approaching Cylon ships. That'll render them completely helpless, just like you did with us. Then we'll take your leaders prisoner to be put on trial to show how peaceful and civilized we are compared to you Cylons. Really? No. My plan is, well, your head is a Cylon fleet. This flashlight is my dick. The plan is... Whoa, relax. Try to go to a happy place, Commander. Try to think of something from your youth that made you happy. Okay, I mean, try to remember something from your childhood that... Never mind. The Cylon guy tries to intimidate Adama with the fact that when he dies, he'll download into a new body and tell the rest of the fleet where they are. But as you can guess from the last minute, Adama is immune to intimidation, so his backup plan is to just attack Adama. Not many realize that Cylons can make a grab attack as a free action. But as you saw, it ends with Adama beating a Cylon to death with a flashlight. Those Maglites really are built tough. Back on Galactica, Baltar's been hard at work at the most important task there is. Covering his ass. He says his program is to blame, but rather than admitting some Cylon blonde wrote in back doors in exchange for letting him tap her back door, he makes it look like there was some way that they found to take advantage of it and erases the program. Just to be on the safe side. Gaeta tries to offer some comfort for the guilt he must be feeling, but Six knows Baltar better than that.
The guilt?
I remember you telling me once that guilt was something small people feel when they run out of excuses for their behavior.
I sometimes wonder if the cult of Baltar that shows up late in the series was inspired in any way by a real-life infatuation with the character in spite of his flaws. And hey, the first thing encouraged at the opinionated guides is to draw your own conclusion, so go to it if you like. But he is still obviously focused on himself, that he's not even seeing what he did.
Just try to remember, it's not really your fault. I mean...
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
You didn't mean for any of this to happen. It's not like you knew what they were going to do.
Like I said with President Roslin, it's certainly understandable that when the end of the world comes, you might be focused on yourself. But it's a little bit different when the end of the world comes and you helped cause it! I feel I should point this out because starting now, Baltar's fate is going to be tied with the rest of the people, and thus aiding them serves his own best interest. Say, for instance, Six pointing out that a device attached to the console is identical to a Cylon device she'd had back on Caprica. It's obviously essential that this should be pointed out, and it's good that he will. At the same time, he's not going to do anything that will even hint that he knows anything about the Cylons. Option 2 then is to start getting a hand job from Six, which he quickly gives the Gaius Baltar seal of approval. Burgundy Suit has the nerve to interrupt Baltar's post-apocalyptic private time, and soon Baltar figures pointing fingers at him. I have to be specific with Baltar. Pointing fingers at him as a Cylon would let him then point them in the direction of the device. But besides the fact that he has zero evidence for such a move, which could mean sentencing an innocent man to death to avoid potentially implicating himself, he's got to deal with the sticky problem of Cylons looking like humans, a fact only he is aware of due to inside information. Luckily for him, and by him I of course mean the human race, Adama returns with his new friend. Ty hates the Cylons almost as much as he does Starbuck and an empty bottle, so this news pisses him off. Plus the fact that people will go around and start accusing each other of being Cylons for no reason. That's something we should avoid. So, we'll only tell Baltar. We can trust him not to point a finger at someone without evidence. Doodly. Burgundy Coat is being arrested and hauled off for being a Cylon, which Baltar can prove because he has a bunch of made-up graphs on a piece of paper. More than enough to convince Colonel Ty. Well, everything's getting prepped for the return to the fight, but there's still a chance for some brief family resolutions. When Adama finds Apollo alive and in his quarters, he says everything that needs saying without opening his mouth. But then, that's Edward James Olmos, folks. Starbuck soon counters this with her confession to Apollo that his brother's death was actually her fault. She passed him when she should have scrubbed him out of flight school because she didn't want to disappoint him. I guess it's lucky he wasn't studying shark dentistry or nuclear bomb juggling. With that, Starbuck heads out through the storm to scout around and sees... Well, what do you think that is, Baltar? Possibly a Cylon welcoming committee. Adamas gets a chance to meet President Roslin face to face. Eventually. Gotta say, Madam President, while you legally have the highest authority amongst mankind, maybe you should show a little respect to the leader of humanity's military if you want him to recognize your own authority. You know, considering that hours ago your primary issue for your office was the best way to help teachers and students find the bathroom. During this time, he's beaten a Cylon to death with whatever he happens to have in his hands, while you nearly killed his son with a boneheaded decision 5 minutes after taking the oath. Trying to put him in his place by making him wait will work only as far as he allows it, seeing as he's got the guns and is more interested in killing more Cylons than in playing bodyguard for you. When Billy leaves, they can finally have their little heart-to-heart. Rosalind needs the Galactica. She knows a military ship is necessary for her fleet to be self-sufficient. Adama, on the other hand, doesn't give two shits whether she's Secretary of Education, President of the Colonies, or High Queen of the Antimatter Universe of Quag. His presence here is to humor her before he gets back to his real job.
The human race is about to be wiped out. We have 50,000 people left, and that's it.
And a lot of those people are in swing states, so their votes really are going to count this November.
Now, if we are even going to survive as a species, then we need to get the hell out of here and we need to start having babies.
Starbuck's report finally comes in, so they gather around the big table to discuss options. It's grim. They'll have to clear the storm to try to jump safely, and the Cylons have them outnumbered and outgunned. There's also no guarantee that the Cylons didn't come here looking for the fleet rather than the Galactica, so there's the issue of whether they can be left behind here. Adama finally makes his contribution.
They better start having babies.
Is that an order?
Well, that's one way of getting reinforcements. They stick Burgundy's shirt in the station with some supplies, on the off chance that he isn't a Cylon, then make their plans. Galactica will try to buy time for the fleet to make a massive jump outside the storm, then get all the fighters back and jump. It'll be tricky, having to close up the pods. They know that there's no chance the special effects guy will get away with that trick twice. But how bad can it really be? Yeah, see, with all those ships, they'll have to worry about friendly fire. Except that they're immortal, so friendly fire is a minor inconvenience. Well, at least you won't die wearing a silly helmet. It's Starbuck's chance to really shine as she mops the floor with the raiders, saves Apollo when his ship is damaged, and manages to get back without holding up Galactica, so the whole fleet can rendezvous safely far away. Life is good. Except for the dead people, of course.
So say we all.
One of you hit me with a spitball, and I want to know who. He decides to give a motivational speech.
Limited supplies, limited fuel, no allies, and now, no hope.
I want to be very, very clear to you that these are not problems. These are challenges.
Maybe it would have been better for us to have died quickly, back on the colonies with our families, instead of dying out here slowly in the emptiness of dark space.
And then there's the scurvy. We get it, sir. The slow descent into cannibalism? You've made your point, sir. Flipping a coin to decide whether you should step out the airlock or just blow your head up. Stop cheering us up. You're making the Marines cry. Adama is just prepping them for the big reveal. The sacred scrolls speak of a distant 13th tribe that settled on a planet called Earth, and that only the senior command of the fleet know its location to protect it from the Cylons. With that info, everyone's really cheered up. Guns removed from mouths and returned to their holsters. A real sense of optimism, finally. Rosalind speaks to him in private, though, and finally gets him to admit that there is no Earth, but that there's no sense in trying to survive if there's no hope. The parental angle between them and the rest of the fleet is first made clear. Like a parent who tells a child everything is going to be all right, even if chances are grim, Their line to stop the remaining humans from falling into despair. It's a hard question once the stakes have been raised by an apocalyptic event. What should a leader be willing to do to preserve their people before it crosses the line where protectiveness becomes arrogant presumption? For instance, holding elections after the end of the world means that everything that comes with elections, like making decisions for political rather than practical or moral reasons, will come with it. It seems like a mistake that could wind up letting our basest emotions drive us to our own end. On the other, without a means of making your displeasure known, of knowing you have some control over your destiny no matter how small, eventually that can just lead to apathy, passive aggressiveness, violence. But if being tired, hungry, cramped, and miserable is all life has to offer, then there's the chance to be manipulated. Adama's lie, after all, was to give them hope so that they could keep running. Someone else could offer a similar hope to stop, and in so doing, leave them vulnerable to the Cylons. But if we believe our leaders must lie to us because being uncomfortable and having empty bellies means we'll march to our own destruction, then Adama's question looms. Why do we as a race deserve to survive? As the story draws to a close, some things have changed and some stayed the same. Apollo and his father have resolved their past differences. Rosalind and Adama have moved into a position of cautious mutual respect. Despite my comments, Colonel Ty has actually risen to the occasion and done a fine job as XO throughout the crisis, and even takes time to try to bury the hatchet with Starbuck. But she has no interest in the overture, because she hasn't seen any sign that he's not the same old drunk and isn't going to pretend otherwise. But then there's always going to be some personality issues, and part of this show is that not everyone gets along despite the situation. Trapped at the end of the world with someone you hate? The apocalypse sucks. Ah, Booze, I can never stay mad at you. Baltar also establishes his position with Six and makes it clear he's not on anybody's side in this. Gaius Baltar looks out for number one. But he is good enough to drop a note anonymously to Adama that there are only 12 Cylon models, and we discover in the epilogue that he was right about Burgundy Code after all. He was a Cylon.
Nice work, asshole.
And the big reveal that Boomer is a Cylon too. So, you go to all the trouble to plant a sleeper agent amongst the humans to help bring about their destruction, and the one the President uses to rally the humans together to survive is your own agent. I have to question whether or not this is a plan so much as a goal with a couple of bullet points and some question marks underneath. The music for the miniseries is quite powerful and would remain one of the strongest elements of the series. Richard Gibbs worked primarily on the miniseries, with some work being done by Bear McCreary, who would take over for the series proper, and would go on to do noticeably high-quality work on other shows, such as Sarah Connor Chronicles and The Walking Dead. It's easy to see why the miniseries soon led to a full series being developed, despite the price tag. It moves through its 3 hours with enough speed to avoid bogging down, but not without rushing to get to the ending. It closes with a promise, but not a guarantee. A hope, but a cautious one. The idea of seeing whatever would happen to them, to be sure that they would one day reach Earth, or some other home, would draw people back and help it grow. Whatever successes and failures the series might have had, though, the miniseries itself served its purpose of establishing Battlestar Galactica for a new century.